Morning. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us. Another wonderful morning, and cannot wait to spend this amazing day with you, talking about very, very important things, including purpose and building resiliency and finding purpose through pain. To help me have this conversation today, I have a special guest with me, Patrick Long, who you're going to be meeting very shortly. But as we get started, let's take a moment and think about why do we talk about Goldilocks and why it's important for us to keep the message of Goldilocks front and center. What age were you when you read the story of Goldilocks? And what images does it conjure up as an adult as you think about Goldilocks? To me, Goldilocks symbolizes a person who wants things done just right so that life works out in a comfortable manner, in a way that it makes her happy, right? She wants to make sure her porridge is not too hot, not too cold. She wants to make sure her bed is not too hard, not too soft. And as I take those lessons and bring it to adulthood, what it reminds me of is the importance of centeredness. How do we show up with the centeredness where we are not on either extreme? And why is that important? Let's take a moment and ask, why is that important? There's a ton of research that proves any individual can only influence 3 levels from where they are. We can only influence 3 levels from where we are. That means if I'm already at the extreme position of the right end, I can only influence 3 levels towards the center. If I'm already at the extreme left end, I can only influence 3 levels towards the center. The operative word being towards the center. That means all influence needs to be away from my extreme staked out position. But what if I learn to embrace the multiple perspectives of any issue and I come from slightly left or right of center? All of a sudden, I can influence people towards the right spectrum for 3 levels, towards the left spectrum for 3 levels, and I can also influence everybody in the center lane who's around me. I have taken the 3 levels of influence and actually geometrically multiplied it to have 7 degrees of influence. Ultimately, if my motives are purely selfish or they are truly global and embracing humanity, in either case, for me to accomplish what I want to, I have to be able to influence. If I need to be able to influence, then it truly behooves me, each of us, to find that centeredness and come from that center. And that's why we talk about Goldilocks, and that's why we talk about centeredness. Ultimately, our goal is to build our own purpose, build our own prosperity. And if we have a larger purpose that is beyond us and our family, then we allow it to spill over to the larger society. This is also the month of March, which is month celebrating women. So let's also think about how that brings centeredness into the picture. First of all, we all have a purpose in life. Our purpose is at the intersection of what we love, what we are great at, and what the world needs. Because if there's something I love, but I totally am awful at it, even if the world needs it, there's nothing I can do to share it with the world other than be a butt of a joke, right? And if I'm comfortable with it and I'm comfortable with self-deprecating humor, no problem. But I still cannot monetize it to build my economic engine. So for me to have a successful life that is truly giving me the ability to live a fulfilled life that allows me to live my purpose at the same time, generate income and be economically viable, I need to find my purpose at the center of what I love, what I'm great at, and what the world needs. So here again, my life success and my life's fulfillment lies in being centered on my purpose. As we then take one more step beyond that and look at, okay, this is the month of March, we're celebrating women. Women are a good 51% of our global population, right? But is that the only gender role we need to think of, or do we each have the opportunity to embody masculine and feminine energy inside of us? I talk about it in my book, Ennobled for Success. And one of the things that stands out for me is in the month of March, why not we teach our boys, the sons we're raising, the importance of embracing the feminine energy inside of us? Because then we are telling our male children that it's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to be kind. It's okay to be empathetic. In fact, you need to be. And the power we give our sons when we allow them to grow up understanding that the masculine and feminine energy is inside of you. Yes, you need to grow up as a rock'em sock'em. I am a very tough boy. I'm growing up to be a man. That's important. But then also show the daughters the masculine energy of setting goals, driving success, delivering results. All of a sudden, we can raise our boys and girls the same way. Give them the tools, teach the boys to cook and teach the girls to, change a light bulb and hook up a fan on the ceiling, right? We don't lose anything by giving skills and capabilities and understanding our masculine and feminine energy inside of us. And why is that important? What we grow up believing is what we embrace as adults, and what we believe become our destiny. What we believe always informs our thoughts shape our words then influence our actions become our habit becomes our values, and our values become our destiny, right? So it is a progression, but at the same time, if we raise our children right, and in the process, we as parents transform ourselves, can we imagine how much better the family is going to be? How much more resilient our children are going to be? And therefore, they're going to show up as adults in the workplace with that resiliency, with that ability to be successful. And why is that important for us? When children are raised to believe the masculine and feminine energy, and there is right and wrong, and there is centeredness, they're also learning to build resiliency and have gratefulness. Gratitude is another element that allows us to bring out our emotional intelligence and all our soft skills, which then guide 80% of our success. Gratitude is like a drug or a steroid that truly kickstarts the right brain and secretes all the happiness hormones, dopamine in our body, that then allows our skills and all our capabilities to show up at maximum potential. And embracing gratitude with resiliency and understanding that our belief system is shaping us, all of that is critical, both as we raise young people as well as we grow up as adults. And as we go through this process in the place of centeredness, we start realizing perspective is everything. I have this image of me in a caricature, very tongue-in-cheek, right? It is a slice of a grapefruit, not even an orange. But, you can look at that picture and imagine all kinds of things. It's perspective. One of the exercises I give when I do workshops is I draw a number 6 and have 2 people stand on either side. One person says it's a 6, the other person says it's a 9. They're both right. They're both right, and neither of them are wrong. In life, we have situations like that. What if we turn around and take each other's perspective and say, oh my God, it could be 6 or a 9? How much better is our life going to be if we can all see things from each other's perspective? Because there is more than one way. As children, we are always teachers, I've heard his story, I've heard her story. Now, where's the third story, right? Because there's more than two sides to a story. A third party's view is also an important view to take. And as we build perspective and as we bring gratitude and we bring our beliefs to build resiliency, we also start realizing peace and happiness as things we get from the inside. They're inside jobs we draw from within. Nobody else can make us happy if we choose not to be. Nobody else can give us peace if we choose not to have peace. How do we then, in the process, develop the art and science of drawing it from within and being in that peaceful place, being in that happy place? Because it's a state of mind. From that state of mind, from that premise, then we are able to deal with life as things happen. There are no guarantees in life. Nobody said it's going to be a bed of roses. And ultimately, it's through tough times and hardship that we find ourselves. So with that context and with that perspective, it is my honor and pleasure to bring on Patrick Long to the show. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you so much. It's just so amazing. Everything you said is just so powerful and so true. And I love hearing it.
Thank you, Patrick. So just a little bit of background about Patrick, and then I'm going to actually have him tell you the introduction to his story because it's very powerful. You have to hear it from his voice, from his perspective. Patrick is an author, a international #1 best-selling author, very proud of his accomplishments and a must-read book. He's from St. Louis, born and raised in St. Louis, United States. He was married to his wife, Melanie, who passed away from breast cancer in 2019. And he's a father. He's a professional in the world of technology, but through the pain of caring for his wife and helping and being a caregiver through her struggles, he evolved and he became the person he is today. And together, he and his wife made a commitment that they are going to celebrate her and be happy because having her in his life was a good thing. Having her in the children's life was a good thing. And you're going to hear in his own words the importance of celebrating life. And his book, Ordinarily Extraordinary, talks about the love and anger, the life and death, the hope and despair, hope and inspiration that we can derive from even challenging situations. So with that, I open it up to you, Patrick, so that you can go ahead and give us some background on what brought you to the point of writing this story.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll share a little story. So my wife passed in March of 2019. And actually 2 days ago, March 9th, was the anniversary of 2 years of her passing. But so to share a little story, so when she passed, we were in the ICU in the hospital and, at her bedside as she passed, and we had about a dozen friends and family there, and all in the hallway in the room, kind of moving in and out, and spent a little time with her and said goodbye and stepped out in the hall and let other people, come in and say their goodbyes. And while I'm out in the hall, we have 4 young children. And at the time she passed, our kids were 4, 6, 8, and 12. So very young. And I'm standing there just realizing, overwhelmed because the thought hit me. I have to go home and, still gets a little emotional. I had to go home and tell 4 young kids, their mom had died. And you're like, how do you do that? And as I'm standing there, I'm really overwhelmed. And I'm just feeling like, what am I going to do? How am I not only going to do that, but how are we going to live? How are we going to go on? How am I going to raise 4 kids and work a job and everything else that goes on with that? And, everybody's there. And within a few minutes, one of our friends walks up and she's just like, oh, Patty, she says to me, what are we going to do now? And she's just sad. And, and when I heard someone, it was exactly what I just been feeling. So I totally got it. We're hugging each other. But it hits me like hearing someone else say it out loud, it hit me how important that question was and what it meant. And I responded to her. Sorry, excuse me. I responded to her and I said, well, we're going to thrive, and just in that moment, I made a choice and I just realized we are not going to live sad. My wife was an amazing person. She was a person who she could just connect with people instantly. She had so many friends, and she could just make friends anywhere, anytime. I just watched her do this over and over again. I would always joke that I had 4 friends and she had 4,000 friends. And it's kind of not a joke. But so, I was like, we're going to live on in her spirit. We're going to live a positive life and just have fun, whatever we're doing. And, I said to my friend right after I said, we're going to thrive. We're going to live, a great life. I said, we're going to live on in the spirit of Melanie, because we're going to just, have fun in life and be good to people and enjoy everything. And, and I realized at the time that was important. I knew that was important. It was important for our kids, our family, to set that positive tone and be determined to stick with it and live it. And I also knew it was going to be hard. It wasn't going to be an easy thing to do, but I was just immediately, I had this deep resolve that this is what it's going to be. We're not going to live sad. And we're going to look at this as like, it's not a tragedy she died. It would have only been a tragedy if we didn't have all these years with her, And that's really my outlook. Like I refuse, I get emotional, of course, and I miss her, but I refuse to be sad. I'm so grateful for all the years I had with her and the 4 kids that I now have in my life who are just awesome kids. And what happened was, so like 3 or 4 days later, our pastor from our church calls me and he's talking about who's going to do the eulogy. And it was one of those things where I couldn't think of who exactly I might want to do it. And, he said, well, we also have people we can hire. You give them some notes and they'll do it. And I was just like, oh no, like, I felt like I owe it to her. Nobody knew her as well as I did. Plus, I don't want anyone going up there again and being sad, because I'm determined we're not going to set, we're going to set a positive tone. We're not going to be sad. So I told him I'm going to do it. And he's like, do you think you can? It's so emotional. And I'm like, it's going to be hard, but I'm just going to do it. So again, making that choice and just being there. And so I did the eulogy, and, a little while after I did the eulogy, I shared a bunch of stories about us, and I honored her, and within it though, I made it positive. I told some funny stories about us and just the great life and how we're going to live on. And a little while later, I kind of realized I'd always wanted to be an author. I've actually written 3 books over the years. This is the first one I published, but I intend to publish the other ones and many more. And this is something I've always wanted to do. And so in the weeks and months following that, even though I was grieving, I realized kind of the eulogy I did kind of became a framework, for the story I was going to tell. So a lot of the same stories that I told in the eulogy became part of the book. But as I got into it, as I even just started making notes and thinking about how I'd tell this story in a book, I also realized it had to be so much more than that. And I realized I had to get vulnerable. I had to get honest and candid. And so along with all that, I started sharing in the book just stories of my own background, because I grew up with some tough situations in childhood. I won't go into too much detail about that, but it really caused me to have an inferiority complex. And really, like, growing up, honestly, I really kind of didn't even like myself, and I didn't feel I was good enough for anything, and didn't have the confidence to do so many things I wanted to do, because I just didn't, and I really hit a down and out point when I was around, 20 years old or so, and kind of made a choice then and turned my life around and live better. But I realized I had to share those stories, because as I told the story of what went on with Melanie, I had to put it into context, and I had to show why we were feeling the way we were feeling, why we were, who we were. And I really got raw and real, not only about my own past and my own mistakes and my own stuff, but, also our relationship. And I wanted to leave this first and foremost for our kids. And I wanted to teach them real lessons, but I also realized how powerful and it could be for everyone out there to show, like, to just be honest and show you're not alone. Like, you're not, I had some really deep, dark and sad thoughts at different times, going through the stress of her going through cancer and passing. And, a lot of those thoughts are ugly, but I shared them because I wanted people to know, like, you're not the only one. Let's be honest. We think these things. And but again, at the same time, I shared some marital discord we had and some fights we had. And, sometimes, I wasn't exactly happy with our marriage, and just being honest about that. And some of the things I was sharing, to be perfectly honest, I was scared to share. I wrote some of them and just deleted them. And then, because I was like, I can't tell people that, or I thought that, or I did that, because I'll just look like a jerk and everyone's going to hate me. But then I put them back in, because then I realized, no, I got to tell that. It's just too important. And even after I rewrote them and I was comfortable, I thought this is the right thing to do. I still remember sitting there the day I published. There's a submit button where I was uploading the book to put it out there, right? And I'm like, I almost couldn't click the submit button. I'm like, I am crazy. I'm nuts. I cannot put this book out there and let people know all these things about me.
But you still chose to be vulnerable. You chose to be vulnerable to let other people, in a way, you gave other people permission to be vulnerable, right?
And that's what I found, because the thing is, in the end, after I did all that, those things I was so afraid of sharing have become the most powerful things that resonate with readers and everyone. And those are the things I get the best feedback on. And people are like thanking me for, showing that, you're not the only one. And let's be honest about this. These are those deep, dark thoughts people don't want to admit they have or don't want to share, but we do. And and then people have been sharing their stories with me. I can't even believe I've been so now blessed and lucky, in these last year plus or so, since, a little under a year since I actually published the book, how much I've got to hear other people's stories, and people share their stories with me, and they feel okay doing that because they know I did it, honestly. It's just amazing. You feel the power in it. And then, I was just talking to someone last night who kind of wanted to share their story, but were afraid to do it. And I'm like, no, that's exactly why you should. If you're afraid, those are the things. That's when embrace that and go. And that's what people are going to love. Go after it, because it was the most healing thing I ever could have done. And now I am so much stronger and so much less afraid to share my feelings. And, it's just an amazing, amazing, empowering feeling. And I'm so glad, I did all that. It's just been awesome.
And you and I have talked, I've heard this story before, but every time I hear you talk about it, it's moving. It's also personal to me, because my husband, who's sitting here, we went through 3 years of cancer. And there were times where 2 or 3 times in that journey, we thought that he was not going to make it. Yeah. And we are blessed. And he's sitting here today, but we also know the hardship and the heartache that goes with it. But we're also a couple that laughed through it all, because, you have to dance through it and sing through it and laugh through it, right, because otherwise, where do you draw that strength from?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So you think back about how this helped you heal, and the way you're talking, you're truly very comfortably sharing your feminine energy, right? How did it feel to be raised a very typical masculine person from the Midwest of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. To then come to terms with, how do I deal with this, and how do I draw from my feminine energy to become stronger? It is not something normally men think about. Right. And as human beings, we don't think of feminine energy as true courage and true strength. But being vulnerable is the most courageous thing. It's not about beating somebody up or bombing somebody. It's about truly being vulnerable and lifting other people up and seeing the good in the bad, right? Mm-hmm. How was that journey for you?
It's interesting when you ask that, because I think so much of, the stereotypical belief that, was more prevalent in past decades. Unfortunately, we're getting past of masculinity and, being the strong male and the way it used to be looked at, is really a lot of what damaged me. That's what kind of caused me to become down. And, because I never felt like I was living up to it. And I didn't feel like I was strong enough or tough enough or, this or that throughout my life, which just made me feel terrible about myself. And, it was, looking back on it, was stupid. I mean, it's just illogical, because it's like, why is anybody else any better than me? And then I think when you have that just unchecked masculinity where everybody's just super competitive and you got to be tough all the time in different, in all the wrong ways, sort of, there's that, yeah, that was a huge problem. And it was when I became vulnerable, and learn to just address those things and bring them out and admit them. Then you can't defeat an enemy that you can't see. You can't take something and deal with it if you don't even know it exists or you don't acknowledge it. And you have to acknowledge those feelings you have, and bring them out no matter how much they scare you, in order to heal from them and in order to deal with them and, take them on. And that, I started doing that when I was younger. That's when I turned my life around and got back into college and started succeeding and doing better and growing confidence. And it all came from that. It came from vulnerability. I was just reading someone else, if you know the author Brene Brown, and she has a little phrase where she says, there is no courage without vulnerability. And when you first hear it, it's one of those phrases when you first hear it, you're like, well, I don't know. And then you listen to the explanation and you start thinking about it and you're like, oh my God, that's completely true. Courage is like, the false sense of it is just the brave guy running into battle or whatever. And the truth is, and then when you think about that, the explanation is, well, even that guy is being vulnerable. He's running into a situation where he could get killed, right? There is no courage without vulnerability. And it's so true. And it's such a powerful thing. So, I'm more and more now just embracing vulnerability and just be able to admit it, but, and be able to be, somebody's not going to like me because they think I'm weak because I'm showing a vulnerability. I really don't care because I'm realizing I'm actually stronger than you. If you're overcompensating for something you can't deal with if you can't understand why this is important.
A couple of things that strike me based on what you have just been sharing with us. One, as they say, the first step to a 12-step program is to admit we have a problem, right? So we can't address something we can't recognize, and that's a mission critical important first step. Because if we pretend it doesn't exist, the only person we are hurting is ourselves and then everybody around us.
Absolutely.
The second aspect is, yes, it takes vulnerability. And if people think you're weak, you can't be bothered by it. But it also reminds me, people who think it's weakness are people who are afraid to be weak. Afraid to be vulnerable, and therefore they're attaching a label to give an excuse for not being vulnerable.
I 100% agree. It's so absolutely true. And yeah, I mean, I'm that way more and more. I'm working on like a new book, and I'm just like, now I'm working on a book. I'm looking for ways to, I'm trying to find things to be vulnerable about because I know that's where the power comes from, and I want to keep sharing those stories and hearing other people's stories and, hearing what they went through. Because and it's not only dealing with it yourself, which is of course first and foremost important, and sharing your own. But the more than we share them with each other, the more than we learn and benefit and grow from other people. And that's, that's what I love about where we're at today. The more now I'm now in this world where I'm in spaces like this all the time and talking to people, and they're sharing their stories. And I'm just hearing stuff people have been through and just seeing the amazing strength that they have, that they're coming out of it. And they're so strong now. Mm-hmm. And across the board, every single person who got vulnerable and admitted their weaknesses or their shortcomings or whatever, and dealt with them and overcame them, every single one of those people is stronger and, courageous and brave and an inspiration. And, you just keep hearing it. And you're like, man, you just keep wanting to hear more of it. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So in a way, COVID has been a blessing, right? It's forced us to take a journey introspectively. While we're all in lockdown and in the physical isolation, it also has opened up our community, larger electronic world, where we can build these relationships, and we're learning how to be authentic and how to be vulnerable even with strangers, right? Mm-hmm. This community, for example, I used to have the show on Voice America. I took it off of Voice America and brought it here because this was a better way to have a conversation, given where the world was, and everybody needed an opportunity to get to know each other, engage with each other, and share stories. And it has been nothing but inspirational to have different people come back with different feedback and even ask for specific topics, ask for, can we talk about this issue? Mm-hmm. And to me, the most rewarding part is after the show ends in an hour and a half, people from all over the world stay on for a whole hour to then have a conversation, not just with me, but with each other.
That's
So
awesome.
people who don't know each other are meeting, building relationships. And in a way, as horrible as COVID has been, there are silver linings too.
Yeah, I agree, because I think people, like you said, they're doing more meetings like this now, and what it's actually done is like kind of accelerated us all sharing, because now we can just jump on one of these at home. And before, I think either someone wrote a book or then they'd have a seminar or a presentation you go to, so you were more limited in like how many times you get to hear other people's stories or discuss these things. And now everybody's just opening up and doing shows like this, and just it's there all the time, which is, I think, a great thing. This is one of those, we knock social media, we knock stuff, and there are downsides to them, but there's also the huge upside. The reason they are great tools, it's allowing us to communicate more, connect more, get in and hear each other's stories more. And yeah, I agree, that's just a beautiful, wonderful thing. It's just awesome.
And ultimately, everything in life has positives and negatives, right?
Right. Oh,
so it's up to us, just like happiness and peace. We get out of a situation what we want to get out of it.
right.
And we have the ability to navigate that situation in a constructive way or a destructive way. So knowing that becomes key.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to learn it is through other people, because none of us are born knowing everything.
No, absolutely. And I think that goes right along with something I was kind of saying when I was sharing the story of being in the ICU, is the power of choice and those choices I've made. The power of choice is another thing I've just learned. It's just amazing how powerful, like, we don't realize until we kind of study it or learn it, and just how powerful that is, and just how much we have choices. Like, as I was younger, I felt like if bad stuff happened to me, like, I felt like I didn't have a choice. It's not my choice. Like, that just happened or that happened, I'm just unlucky, I'm bad, like whatever. And now I realize whatever happens to you, you have a choice how you deal with it. It's just like even Melanie dying. Was it in a way sad and bad? And I'd rather she didn't die. I didn't want to lose my best friend and the mother of our children. But the other side of it is I had a choice how to deal with it. Like, it happened. Maybe, I didn't deserve it. I didn't bring it on, neither did she. But like, at the same time, the choice is, where are you going from here?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of sitting around sad and just being like, oh, poor us, I was like, no, forget that. I rejected pity. I didn't let people pity me. That was part of that setting the tone. If people were feeling sorry for me or pitying me, I was just like, no, people still today, like 2 days ago was her anniversary, and the anniversary of her death. And I was shared some stuff with people, and, people were texting me and they're like, oh, are you okay? Are you holding up? And I'm like, yeah, because I'm refusing to be sad. Like, I had an awesome life with her, and I learned so much from her. And every bit of that just made me stronger and a better person. And I'm not going to be sad. Like, I'm going to appreciate that I had that, and I'm going to take it and make myself a better person and move on and have a great life,
So if you were to give a piece of advice for others who've gone through difficult situations and don't see their way clear out of it, and they are in the depth of despair, they're unable to see the forest for the trees, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I'd say, get vulnerable, like, address those things like we talked about, because you can't, again, the phrase, you can't defeat an enemy if you don't know they exist or you can't see them. You can't shoot a target you don't see. That's the first thing. And I don't think I could give just one piece of advice, because I think at least two or three or more things go together. Ahead. But you do that, and you make a choice, that you're gonna, find the thing that's going to make you a better, stronger person from it. Appreciate what you had and the good things that were in it, and then build on those. Don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive, focus on all the great things you got out of having your time with that person, or whatever happened to you. Every bad thing that happens to you is just an opportunity for growth. It really is. And that's probably the number one thing, is realize that, recognize it, choose to see that, and make those choices and move forward. And then with that, share with people. Get on shows like this, read inspirational books, read, and surround yourself with that good stuff and those vibes and those good people, and just, keep like sharing your own stuff, keep listening to other people, because you don't just learn a lesson once and you have it. It's not like something happens, you learn a lesson and, okay, I'm good for life now. I never have to think about this again because now I'm strong. No, I mean, we all have moments we start getting down, and we need that reminders. We need those reinforcements. We need those, things to remember, like, why this is good. We do. We just do. Because if we don't have those things, then the negative thoughts are going to overtake us.
Very true.
So you got to keep reinforcing. You got to keep the good thoughts and the good feelings and good people in front of you, and keep sharing with them and keep listening to them, because they'll keep showing you the great path.
And a important point you just made is we learn and grow from difficult situations, right?
Right.
Only when we are uncomfortable, we grow. If everything is working out the way we want, then there is no growth. Life is, easy streaks.
Right.
And a lot of times people say they're grateful for all the good things that happened. But based on what you're saying and looking back at my journey and how I approach life, it reminds me to remind everybody that we have to learn to be grateful for the bad things that happen in our lives too, because it's the
Right.
bad things that truly shape us, give us perspective, and give us the opportunity to become vulnerable and become courageous, right? And if we miss out on those opportunities and we take them as nothing but negative, then we fully don't give ourselves the benefit of having lived through it.
Right.
In my gratitude journal, I actually, every week as people are journaling, there is a section about the negative things that have happened and what have I learned and how have I grown from it. If we start consciously documenting it, because we can change our belief system and therefore change our destiny, right? Ultimately we have to believe to change our life path, and if we don't believe and we're just going through the motions we've always gone through, then life is not going to change. And so I totally hear what you're saying in terms of fully embrace those dark days and learn from it, grow from it, and change your belief so that the world for you can change, right? None of us are going to change the world. We can only change ourselves.
Right. But by changing ourselves and sharing with people, we do change the world. Like,
Yes, we
this right
influence.
here changes the world. We're all sharing with each other, learning from each other, growing together. And you're right. Like, there is no growth without bad things happening to you. If nothing but good things happen to you in your life, you would never grow. You would never get strong, because you'd have no reason to. You just sit there and enjoy the good things. The bad things that happen to you, Melanie passing, yeah, it makes me sad. Like, it sometimes feels like a tragedy, but like I said, it's not a tragedy. It would have been a tragedy if I didn't ever have her. And all it's done is just made me a stronger, better person. And the reason it has, though, is I've chosen that. I've chosen that path. I could be sitting around wallowing in self pity, sitting around thinking, oh, how bad I have it, and why did this happen to me? I refuse to think about that. I don't care. Like, it happened. I can't change it. It happened. I'm moving on. I'm growing from it. And, I keep making choices along the way. Just keep making me a better, stronger person, make our kids stronger, and help them keep growing to be stronger in their spirit. And, it's a great thing. It's a great thing I had her in my life. And it's a great thing I'm still living on in her spirit.
So the question that comes to my mind, and this can help other parents, how have the children evolved watching you? Because you are modeling the behavior for both your sons and daughters, right?
Right.
So what are they learning from this, and how have they changed, and how has that brought the family along?
In so many ways. I mean, I'm not going to try and paint a picture like we're all great or pretend I'm some perfect parent and they're all perfectly behaved, because they're kids.
Mhm.
They sit there and fight with each other and yell at each other and all that too sometimes. But at the same time, it's amazing how positive they are. It's amazing. Like, and we just took an attitude like we don't dwell on the sadness of it. And when stuff comes, I don't like deny talking about her with them because I'm afraid of us feeling bad. I'll bring stuff up to them once in a while. They'll bring stuff up to me. But when those conversations happen, what I do is I always steer it to something positive. It's not just let's sit there and be sad. Like, tell a great story about something funny mom used to do, or something positive, and be in that spirit. And the amazing thing is how much our kids, as much as they fight with each other at home and stuff, at the same time they really have each other's backs. And a lot of people I've really noticed that like when they're out, they're kind of protective of each other. And they actually, like, as much as they fight sometimes, they also play together great a lot of times, and they have fun together, and they're so good to other people too. And I got to give a shout out to this because it's so awesome. There's a group called Camp Kesem, KESEM, and they're a camp that's run through colleges and universities. It's for kids who have a parent with cancer. And from the time Melanie got diagnosed, we got them in that. And that has taught me so much because Camp Kesem isn't like, hey, kids, come together and let's sit around and talk about how sad we are, how bad it is that this happened to our parents. They just go out and have fun. And they'll have a week-long summer camp in the summer, and like 90% of it is just fun. They're out there having fun together, and all these kids are like, this is great. Here's all these other kids like me who are dealing with this stuff, yet here we all are out having fun. And just seeing the way they have one night a week, they have what they call an empowerment ceremony when they do talk about stuff and share their stories. But then they go right back to having fun. And I'm like, that was such a lesson for me. They've been a model for me. Because I'm like, that's how we're going to do it. There are times to address it, but then we're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy life. We're going to be positive about everything. And, that has been a major influence on me being able to do that. And it shows in my kids. Because again, they not only learned at that camp how to have fun, enjoy life, know they're supported, know they're not alone, but they become better people. Because they were telling me one year when they were doing the empowerment ceremony, my son, one of my sons, my second oldest son, was going around hugging other kids and telling them, it's going to be okay, when these kids were sharing their stories. And I was so blown away because I'm like, oh my God, he's not just having fun at a camp. He's learning to be a better person. He's learning to support others. And excuse me, I see them doing that with each other, and I see them doing it with other people too, and how good they can be like other kids. And I'm like, man, that's just amazing. That's just so awesome. They have that and they live that way.
That is amazing. And for the group to teach the young people how to embrace their inner joy, right? What's happening in your life is happening, but that doesn't stop you from embracing your inner joy and living every moment to its fullest while keeping what's happening to you in perspective, right? Ultimately, that is the practical lesson they're teaching. And that is so powerful to get when you are young. So thank you for sharing that. And what I will do is when I share out the show at the end of this early next week, I will include the website for them. So if you can email that to me,
sure, that's awesome.
It can benefit a lot of people.
No, I'd be happy to. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like Camp Kesson should be a household name because everyone out there has, any parent who gets diagnosed with cancer should know about this and get their kids involved with it because it has just been so awesome. I've seen it help so many kids, not just my own. It's an amazing, amazing organization.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that resource as well. Mm-hmm. I think now I'm going to open it up for conversation. We have some of our audience here who I'm sure have questions for you and want to share their own thoughts and insights. So let's open it up for a wonderful conversation. Yes, Robin.
Thank you so much. This is so inspiring. I have been taking notes as I've been listening, and just really thank you so much. The question I was going to ask is that there are often times when people, completely well-meaning and from a place of love, come and say something, try to be comforting, to try to be supportive, but it just doesn't land as comforting and supportive. So I'm wondering, what are some of the things that people said or did to you that you would have preferred them to say something different? If you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's hard to recall. I probably had quite a few of those, like at her funeral service and stuff, but that's been a couple of years now. And I think part of the thing is, I don't know if I remember any specific ones, just because it's been long enough. And plus, probably because of my attitude, I just channel that stuff out and turn to the positive. So it doesn't really stick in my memory because I don't dwell on it, which I think is a powerful way to deal with it. But yeah, I mean, it happens for sure. And I think it's just something where you got to, instead of like getting upset or getting offended with the people, sometimes I think you yourself, it benefits you to just remember their intention. Like, they mean well. They don't know any better. A lot of them, I probably did that too when I was younger sometimes, right? I'm sure I did, right? We all probably didn't. especially if it's somebody younger, somebody who hasn't been through something like this, they don't know. They're probably making an effort to be nice, even if they don't realize they're not doing it the right way. And so you just kind of maybe give them grace and just don't worry about it. And a lot of times I think what I'll do is I'll respond to the people with something positive. Like if, somebody, like I said, I just kind of reject pity, and I don't like people feeling sorry for me. If somebody, and I don't like that because it's like a negative energy. And I'm like, that's just going to bring me. And so, I'll say to people stuff like, it wasn't a tragedy she died. It'd be a tragedy if we didn't have her. I'll say words like that in response to the person to kind of turn it to something positive and show them like, no, we're gonna live on in her spirit. We have we actually use it as a phrase. We say spirit of Melanie. Like Melanie's sister and I have grown closer since Melanie passed, and we talk about that all the time. That's like a little phrase we use. We're like, we're living in the spirit of Melanie. We actually went to like Disney World, to take the kids to do something fun a couple months after Melanie passed. Because again, for me at the time, it wasn't the best financial decision, but that was where I was like, no, but we're going to keep doing. We'd been talking for years about wanting to do that, and we couldn't do it because of Melanie's condition, because she couldn't really travel with everything she was going through. And I was like, we've been talking about this for years. We're going to do it. So we're going to show the kids, so even though it wasn't maybe the best financial decision at the time we did it, but we got the little mouse ear hats, whatever you call those. And we actually had them stenciled and put Spirit of Melanie on the back of the cap. And that's like our keepsake to remember that trip. So I think that's the attitude. Like, you got to give a little grace and just realize most of those people probably, I'm sure most, if not all, don't mean to say anything bad. So just kind of just give them grace and forgive them, and then steer it to the positive.
Beautiful answer. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It also shows your spirit, right? You are not only embracing your own vulnerability, you are giving space and holding space for other people to make their mistakes and learn from it. And in a very gentle way, you're guiding them. And that's not normally the masculine energy, that's the feminine energy, right? So seeing that side by side is a beautiful thing. And having it modeled is the only way other people are going to learn, because it's not something most people grow up with, right? I don't care what culture, we raise our sons very differently than the way we raise our daughters. And so seeing that side by side, to me, is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, the one thought I have on that, it's so also true. And the thing I want to share with people is to know, like, this isn't how I've always been. Like, I was 20, 30 years ago, I was a drastically different person. I was negative about life, and I was closed off. This isn't like, oh, I've just always been this way. Right. I've grown into it and learned, and I can tell you absolutely that's the way to go. Like, I'm a better, stronger person from doing it. And to the point where it's kind of funny, because honestly, like right now, even after 20 years with her, if Melanie heard me talking this way and some of the stuff I share and how open I am, she's probably laughing hysterically, looking down on me, because she's like, because like when I first knew her, like I could be pretty open with her and we could share, but like with other people I wasn't. And I was like, I was much more closed off, and she'd want me to be more open about my feelings and our relationship and share stuff. And like a typical guy, I wasn't a lot of times, and that we could have had a better relationship if I was. Now I realize back then I didn't think that. I had different motivations, but that's not who I always was. And, you become that, but I can tell you, it's a better way to live. It's a better way. You feel better, you're stronger, you're happier. And so, for people who aren't there, don't be afraid of it, because it's nothing but growth and a better life,
Beautifully said. Thank you. So as I am listening and as we are talking, one of the questions that come to my mind is, how can we help families and help people going through tragedies? What is the right way to lean in and hold space and help?
Again, some of the stuff we talked about, of course, but maybe the first thing I'd kind of say is to take advantage of just resources and connect with people. Like, don't go it alone. Don't just sit there and let these thoughts swirl in your head and not reach out for help or support. Get involved, get online and watch shows like this. Read a self-help book, or go connect with people, join a group. Like American Cancer Society is a group we're heavily involved with. and through American Cancer Society, I was actually part of, Melanie and I both did fundraising and stuff. And, you know, it wasn't just, okay, we're giving back. It was also like getting into the fundraising. We got into these groups and we made new friends and friends who understood where we were in the world because they're going through stuff too, right? They have a group called Portraits of Hope in American Cancer Society, and it's made up of women who, you know, had breast cancer, and, you know, they're their Portraits of Hope. And Melanie joined that group the first year and did fundraising. And those people are still friends of mine to this day. I was actually out with all the women who they invited me to one of their happy hours like a little while back when we were still doing that kind of thing. You know, here I am, one of the girls hanging out at happy hour with all the Portraits of Hope. You know? And we're just talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was just hilarious. We're having a blast. And yeah, I'm still connected with all them and still talk to them, you know, once in a while. And, you know, when things open up again, we'll probably do some more happy hours. And, you know, I was part of Real Men Wear Pink. You get, I don't know if you can kind of see it. There's a pink top hat on the shelf over my shoulder. I actually got a pink tuxedo for fundraising stuff. And I raised all this money at work, and I said, if we hit like $2,000, you know, in donations, I'll wear this pink tuxedo into work one day. And I did. So I still have the pink tuxedo up in my closet. But the point is, kind of going on is, to answer your question, is get involved. Don't sit there and try and do it alone and not reach out to people. There's all kinds of groups out there you can join or just be part of, or get on shows that deal with this. You know, that's part of the way I'm looking to give back, is I'm working on maybe starting a show, and like, I might just do it as a YouTube channel. I'm not sure yet. We haven't made the final decision, but just sharing lessons and stories of what we've been through, you know, and I'm not the only one. Watch shows like that, get involved, you know, just connect with people and keep being vulnerable, keep admitting your problems and deal with them. You know, don't hide from them.
Yeah. And I think the harder part is admitting that it's okay to be vulnerable, right? And once we get there, life gets easier.
Right.
And I think women are naturally wired to be that most of the time. I'm not saying all of them are. Most of the time, women are wired to be naturally, and it's encouraged for women to be like that growing up. But the harder part is for the male. And when families go through tragedies, the head of household, the male, the father has to evolve too. Otherwise, it's not healthy for the family.
Right. No, I agree. And it's, yeah, I was saying it was hard for me. Like I told you how some of those scenes I was including in my book, I deleted multiple times and then put them back in. I was terrified to reveal it. I just felt this power, and I didn't even understand at the time. I just felt this compelling need to share those things. I just thought it was too important. And I don't think I realized the exact power of it at the time I did it. I just felt the need to do it, you know, for our kids, for others, to just share these things. And that, you know, that really got me on a journey of doing that and being more vulnerable. And now it's great because as a parent, you know, I'm kind of Mr. Mom now because I'm mom and dad to the kids, you know, and being able to be more open with them and not just try to be like, you know, the typical male, you know, like always being hard on them or telling them they just got to buck up, you know, no. You know, if you have a problem, let's just talk about it, you know, and it's like be able to be more vulnerable with them and just being more nurturing and sensitive to what they're going through has been a tremendous help, you know, and helping us just have a great, you know, household and great life.
And I am actually fascinated by the ability to bring that masculine and feminine energy for your own healing, right? To me, that is the cathartic process. That is what's lifting you up and positioning you to live the life the way you want to live. Mm-hmm. And we have Brittany here who works with energies and who understands energy. So I am curious, Brittany, do you have any thoughts or any questions that you want to bring forth, given your background and given the conversation we're having?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually going to turn my video on. Got a little visitor with me.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to say one thing to start off, Patrick, and I had actually put up my little ring light and everything so you guys could see me clearly so I could speak. I want to congratulate you and just say thank you and kudos to you for being able to learn from the universe and be able to just grow and be that example that your kids need. I think it's such a beautiful thing. I'm sorry, one second. I think it's so beautiful and so needed to be able to be that example and to be able to empower other people. I think toxic masculinity is such a dangerous thing. And so the fact that you are able to grow and learn is just amazing. And when it comes to just energy and healing, the ability, like I said, to yield to the universe and go through that process, I think that's just the most beautiful thing. And that's what I would like to say, actually.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
You are so welcome.
And your baby is just adorable.
Oh, thank you.
He's the youngest audience we've had ever, so welcome.
Tuning in this entire time.
When your kids get older, you forget how little and cute they once were. So it's a nice reminder.
Yeah.
And his name is Phoenix, right?
Yes, his name is Phoenix.
So welcome, Phoenix. It's an honor to have you on the show along with Mommy.
Hello.
Wow, he can even smile on cue. Thank you for that, Brittany. And truly, Patrick, it is month of March. We're honoring women. And here we have somebody who's comfortable embracing both the masculinity and femininity and talking about the importance of developing both sides to truly show up courageously and be vulnerable so that you can live your purpose and you can pass it on to your children. Mm-hmm. There is nothing more powerful than that. And femininity is not just physicality. It is truly the energy, right? I can look feminine and completely lack feminine energy, and it defeats the purpose. Right. So to me, this also brings up a larger issue. If we all can embrace both aspects of what is inside of us, our masculinity and our femininity, then we are not going to be disparaging to other people based on the gender they show up in. The physicality with which they show up in is a non-issue. I remember seeing a episode on the Twilight Zone where one group of people had one side of the face white and the other side of the face black, and the other group had mirror image. And each of them thought that the other was ugly. It's like, seriously, right? Look in the mirror. And so if we start truly embracing both sides of us, there will be less bigotry. There's going to be less things that are gender-based. And hopefully it shows up in society and also spills into other aspects of our life, not just gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love what you just said. And it kind of hit a point for me too. And I love you said it multiple times in that about, embracing both sides. And I do think there's an important point there, because I think a lot of men maybe feel kind of sometimes almost attacked, sometimes can feel like, we're bashing masculinity. There's times and places for masculinity. You are supposed to, it doesn't mean you have to go from being the guy you are to being some overly touchy-feely person who just cries all day long every day. That's not what we're saying. It's okay. The bravest men out there, just like the bravest women, can admit their faults, can admit they're vulnerable. They deal with it. It's not being afraid of it. It's the opposite. The fact that you can and you can admit when you need help. If you look, take it from a standpoint of looking at like military, like the ultimate probably vision of masculinity, right? A great military unit is one where like a guy knows like, I'm not as good in this area, so I have another guy over here to help me out with it, right? And they work together as a team and they learn that teamwork. That's the same thing we're talking about, just in other areas of life, like that teamwork, that ability to open yourself up and, connect with people on a deeper level and not be afraid to face it. It doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you strong. So, it's not the bash masculinity at all. It's not to knock that. It's not, make guys feel like they're being attacked or anything like that. It's just to open yourself up and become a more complete person.
Yes. And masculine energy is about having goals and driving results and driving the outcome and having strategy. And so those are skills and capabilities needed in women too. Right? Oh, so in the workplace, we want people to show up with their masculine energy and feminine energy, because if I'm only driving based on masculine energy, I'm not going to care about how people feel. And that includes my customers. If I don't care about my customers, I can't innovate to solve their problems, right? Empathy is a feminine energy. Kindness and compassion are feminine energies. If I don't bring those feminine energies forward, then I am going to be just a taskmaster who just beats people up into submission, and I'm not going to be able to understand my market, right?
Right.
So we need both our men and women to embrace, and this is where the centeredness comes in. We want to be successful and drive results and be goal oriented, but we don't want to do that without kindness, compassion, empathy, and vulnerability. Because if we don't have the feminine energy, we can't influence. If we can't have the masculine energy, we can't bring about the outcome, right? So a happy marriage of the two.